Prostitution, the world's oldest profession. But what does that really mean? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a topic rich with history, controversy, and endless complexities to uncover the story of prostitution across the ages. Step into the past and discover how this ancient trade has evolved and what it reveals about humanity. Our story begins way back in ancient Mesopotamia, often considered the cradle of civilization. Here, prostitution wasn't just a profession, it was a divine calling. Temple priestesses in Sumerian and Babylonian cultures were known to engage in practices we'd today call sacred prostitution. It was believed that these women connected mortals with the gods, offering rituals that promoted fertility and prosperity. And far from being stigmatized, this was a sacred duty tied to religion and community well-being. Meanwhile, across the sands of ancient Egypt, prostitution also found a foothold. Records suggest professional companions attended the court of the pharaoh and entertained nobility. These women weren't mere servants. Much like the courtesans to come later, they were respected for their discretion and wit. Now, enter ancient Greece, a society famed for its philosophy, politics, and yes, its open attitude towards sex work. The Greek world brought us the hetairai, elite courtesans who enjoyed education and independence rare for women of their time. These women weren't confined to brothels. No, they mingled with some of the most powerful figures in society, offering company, counsel, and cultural insights. A far cry from our modern narratives. As the timeline moves into the Roman Empire, prostitution became a regulated industry. Brothels were publicly licensed, and social stratas determined the occupation, from the glamorous escorts of the senatorial elite down to the enslaved workers in the bustling streets. Roman law records even dictate a tax on prostitution, illustrating just how formalized the process had become. But while ancient societies often viewed prostitution within the framework of necessity or religion, their underlying perceptions began shifting in the medieval period. And that brings us to, with the rise of Christianity during medieval Europe, societal attitudes took a turn. Prostitution might have been tolerated, but it certainly wasn't celebrated anymore. Ironically though, it wasn't entirely suppressed. Cities like Paris and London actually regulated brothels under state or local church guidance through something called licensed stews. Why? Because authorities believed prostitution offered an outlet for sin that could reduce greater moral corruption. In essence, it was treated as a lesser vice. And then came the Renaissance, a golden age in art, culture, and yes, even prostitution. This period saw the rise of the courtesans in Italian city-states like Venice. Figures like Veronica Franco became cultural icons. Why? Courtesans weren't just objects of desire. They were conversationalists, poets, and even observers of political happenings. It was a peculiar coexistence of stigmatization and veneration. These women existed in a gray area, celebrated yet marginalized. Fast forward to the 18th and 19th centuries, however, and we see winds of change. The Victorian era, with its emphasis on morality and propriety, cast an increasingly judgmental eye on sex work. Movements toward abolishing prostitution gathered steam, criminalizing those who engaged in it. It was during this period that terms like fallen women entered the lexicon, further stigmatizing sex workers. Hidden, yet persisting. Once again, prostitution adapted like it always had, clinging to the edges of modernity. By the 19th century, laws targeted brothels, closing off urban centers and forcing prostitution into secret encampments or long unseen undercurrents of the society. But this wasn't without consequence. The underground nature often invited violence and exploitation. This period inadvertently marked a dangerous chapter where women, rather than receiving respect, were ravaged at the altar of male demand and disdain. And now, cue the modern world. What place does prostitution hold in today's society? Well, that depends entirely on where you look. In countries like Germany, the Netherlands, or New Zealand, prostitution enjoys a regularized framework. These legal systems aim at providing rights and safety to those involved. Sex workers are treated as professionals who can access healthcare, protection, and employee benefits. The argument that regulation empowers sex workers and reduces exploitation. On the other hand, criminalizing prostitution remains the norm in most parts of the world, from the United States, with some exceptions like Nevada, to numerous conservative nations. The rationale here is that prohibition may deter human trafficking and exploitation, although evidence often suggests that criminalization forces the trade into more perilous underground markets. Of course, no conversation about modern prostitution can be complete without acknowledging its digital transformation. The internet has revolutionized how sex work operates. Online platforms provide opportunities for independent workers, safer client screening techniques, and reduce reliance on exploitative third parties. However, these virtual marketplaces come with their complexities, from web censorship laws to online scams and digital exploitation. And lingering in the background of all this, we still have the age-old debates. Should prostitution be decriminalized globally to remove stigma? Or does legalizing it reinforce subjugation and exploitation, as critics of state-regulated models argue? The contrasting narrative continues to brew globally. When we look at the history of prostitution, we're not just seeing the evolution of a profession. No, it's broader than that. Prostitution acts as a mirror to society's complexities, its values, power structures, hypocrisies, and struggles between morality and necessity. The story of prostitution leads us to one inevitable truth. Beyond the labels and controversies, it's inseparable from the journey of humanity itself. It showcases our resourcefulness, our contradictions, and, perhaps most importantly, our capacity for change, empathy, and evolution. So, what do you think? Should this topic remain in the shadows of societal judgment, or is it time to confront it head-on with clear solutions and unbiased discussions? We'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like this video, share it if it resonated with you, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful journeys into history and culture. Thank you for watching. And remember, the past has plenty to teach us, for it shapes how we move forward in the present.